This is the More Time for Design webinar. It'll be 30 minutes. I hope you've got your teas, coffee, sandwiches, lunches available. Simon and I haven't had lunch, had 2 jammy dodgers. So if you hear any rumblings, that's what it is. Nothing else to worry about. I think it's going to be very important and welcome if you ask questions as we go, especially posing those towards Simon in terms of his case study that he's sharing. In terms of how to do that, a bit of housekeeping, I suppose. If you're looking out for a question mark icon on the panel here on the webinar software, and then when clicking on that, you should get a white section where you can then raise a question, type some text and hit send. And we'll be monitoring those questions as we go. So do feel free to raise those questions as we move through the presentation. So a little bit about us. I'm Matthew Nickerson. I'll effectively be hosting this session. I'm a co-founder and director here at Flow 10, and we're designed for architects, engineers and consultants. And we're really proud and really pleased that Scott Brownrigg, one of our clients, is here talking today, Simon Jardine. And you presumably, you can hear us, Simon, can't you? You're on your mobile at the moment.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I hope you can hear me.
I can. It's like a radio broadcast. So you phoned in. You phoned in. So thank you. We really appreciate it, Simon, especially as you were saying, you've got a management meeting coming up amongst all these other things. So thank you. I really think it's great that you can be here to share your story. And this is what I think everybody here is wanting to understand a little bit. For those of you who are unaware, and I know Simon will be doing a precursor to this, but Scott Brownrigg are one of the largest architects in the UK, and they're also within the top 100 global architectural practices as well. And thinking about projects and that glowing moment when we're about to start a new project, nothing stressful perhaps has happened just yet. It's looking forward and we're really excited about it. We may know a few items like the scale of the project, the client for the project, location, but there's going to be a lot of questions that are raised across the life of the project. And seeing as the focus of this presentation is all about how do we save time for design, which arguably is the greatest value add that you can bring to the project, it's going to be certainly affected by the people, the systems and the processes that you offer your team through the journey, through the life of the project. So thinking about our backstory and our history of project, I'm certain that many of you would say we've got fantastic projects. They're golden examples of work, and individually, both new people within the practice and older established staff members in the practice are fountains of knowledge. All of us are. We've got so much to offer each other by way of knowledge and support in terms of answers to questions. But the reality is that it's more like an archaeological dig, and especially as we're at home now, it can be really hard. All of us this week would have already found it difficult to find something, and it's because there's so many different places to look. Sometimes you're looking for something really particular in terms of a lesson learned or an example that you can use, and these things can be buried away deep inside your practice. Information could be also that the best piece of information is with somebody else, but it's on their desktop, and we need to unlock more of that, because whilst as individuals there's that sense of time saving because information is at your own fingertips, actually overall we're wasting time, we're losing time, and we're making some costly mistakes. And this was just like all good things, I put this together even just this morning, just trying to think about some of the items that you might want to access while supporting that particular project. I'm thinking a lot about the questions that one would raise: who, what, when, where, why and how. Those questions will be related to knowledge, they'll be related to process, and they'll be spread across systems. And I feel like we've been talking about this for many years now, and the problem hasn't gone away. It's got worse because there's now more systems than ever. And we've seen, certainly in the last 18 months, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and all these other products coming along in that area that have enabled us to work together very effectively. But then people are then creating project information in silos, they're sharing information in silos. There's a conflict between those pieces of information, those systems, and your central practice system. And it can be really tricky actually for us as individuals to navigate our way through. And you've been making great strides, I think, some of you as individual practices towards this, but it can still be really tricky, especially this kind of knowledge piece and how we are going to surface the best quality information to support projects and save time. So I've reworded this a little bit as a graphic, but it did make me smile. And I've even shown it within Flow 10 at one of our board meetings, which is actually typically knowledge across the architect or engineering office is pretty fragile. You know, there's sometimes more than one example to the same question, or a duplicate information that may be in conflict with each other. There's systems within systems and information buried. And often what we have is Jenny, or somebody like Jenny, or a number of Jennies who are domain experts in a particular area, or they're holding the whole thing together. Where do I find something? Oh, I'll ask Jenny. Jenny knows. How do I do something here within this practice? Jenny knows. And that is a problem because Jenny's propping a lot of these things up. And when Jenny's not around, that's a challenge. And we've seen, and one of the things I was going to promote was a webinar we did a couple of weeks back now, where another one of our clients was talking about how she was the effect, she was Jenny in effect, her name's Alex, and this challenge of trying to prevent the deluge of information that was requested of her, it has been actually very welcome to enable her to have more time. And I think as director within practice, as a team leader, you want people to raise questions, but you want also people to be able to operate in a self-service environment where they can get to things fast themselves. And we're working in all kinds of different hours of the day now. I'm certain that, like me, your 9 to 5 isn't necessarily the way that you're running things at the moment. And you might want to, at 12 o'clock at night even, grab something. So connecting knowledge is what this is about. I think we could save time if information was more available, and it's about the quality of the information, and it's about the joining together of some of this. So intranet hasn't really gone away, this term of intranet. We're talking really about a series of web pages within your practice to connect things together. It's about the landing page, this home page for the practice. Where is that? And what's happened, and Simon will be talking through some of this, is that you have a number of home pages because software systems often think they're the center of the universe. They think that their system is the greatest, their system is where things should exist. Where in relation to a particular topic, that may be true. In terms of overall experience for the architect or project runner, that's not the case. So we need to think about how do we give a really elegant way for somebody to join in with the information. And by the way, I borrowed some of this graphic from another architectural practice that we're working with. You know who you are. Thank you for this. I didn't seek permission, so I hope it's okay, Mr. L, to use this. But I think it usefully describes the idea, because you'll have different systems for project finance, for HR, for project information, for collaboration. But you know what's joining that together, and you want something to connect. And this is what Flow 10 is about. This is what Simon and Scott Brownrigg will be talking about, this sort of view that one would have of information, and then building off that more knowledge in terms of wikis and guides and blogs and news. Landing pages are really interesting because some of the projects you have, when we fast forward 5 years from now, the information can be lost. How do you go back and find that project when you're looking for something that has a particular BREEAM rating that was an education project? How do I see the best examples of what that project was about? It's really tricky. So a lot of this is about, you know, what does somebody need to know and what do they need to do? And then we can leverage that to save that individual time, and overall as a practice become both more efficient, but also reduce the risk of things going wrong. And no webinar would be complete without a quote. So here we have Renzo Piano actually talking, amazingly, for someone so creative, about how control is really important. You don't want to give everybody complete freedom, because then they're going to create their own individual practices, their own individual information. You want them to be a part of an organization, a fabric, but nevertheless that thing needs to be really effortless and nice to use and connect some of these great systems that you have together. Flow 10 is all about that, and it's about being smart, and being smart by enabling people to be able to on demand access information when they need it, but also prompting them at the right time to use the right information that you've linked into that project workflow. Again, a quote here from within one of our clients, Scott Brownrigg, Managing Director. This was all about trying to have a single pane of glass, this interface above all of the other systems that would bring things together. And that was going to, and it is, enabling people to work to a higher standard and be more effective with their time. So just a few kind of examples as a foundation layer before we look at some of the outcomes of Scott Brownrigg. This is about awareness. It's about logging on to something and seeing what's going on. So in this fictitious practice, M&M, we've got here a segment all about news, but it's a combination of news. Some of this is about what's going on in the practice in terms of social information. Some of it's about dialogue and conversation from Microsoft Teams. Some of it's about industry, and some of it's about individual things I need to deal with. These reminders. I think I'm quite fascinated when we look at this, Simon, about that the reminders idea, because I know that was a big aspect of your thinking, which is how do you prompt somebody to know what they need to do from the different systems? So it may be that you have a different timesheet system and a different area where you do your resource plan, and you have a different area where you deal with QA tasks. How do you surface that up to the individual in a really easy to digest way that when they can click on it, they can then actually go and action and deal with these things? How do we pull in information from your image library, your latest projects, some signposts to particular templates and documents? These are all things that I think people need. What events are coming up? What articles are there? And how do I find examples? This is really quite an exciting thing, this kind of idea of how do I search for stuff? And you'll see actually in this example where somebody searched for building envelope, it's pulling out individuals who are aware, who have experience and expertise in that subject matter. The reality is a lot of this already exists, some of it doesn't, but a lot of this will exist in one form or another within your practice, and it's about just pulling it together in a useful search. It's also about project landing pages. So this idea of system A, B, and C pulling together, because you are using Microsoft Teams, you might have a document system, you might have another system for your resourcing and finance. So pulling that all together, you're seeing one thing, but actually you're seeing a combination of results here. So this is the idea of having this kind of project example where you can sort of go in, look at this individual project, Green Park, and learn from it to take that forward to save time in the next project that you're doing that's similar, including things like learning outcomes. What did we glean during the project? A lot of that's lost currently. And as I said, it's also about connecting to individuals. So certainly this will be touched on by Simon, and one of the drivers here was, who can help me? I need someone who's available, who has certain capabilities that in a software system or within a particular sector. So I think there's quite a lot there. You can then surface up even their availability in Microsoft Teams, their details. You can drill down through. And the final thing really is about this capturing of knowledge. So we won't go into this in a lot of detail, but I think one of the drivers for our clients is capturing the right data, which has then an outcome. So that project we looked at before, I think, was something like 27 stories. Well, in which case we need to log that in terms of the height, because our PI requires us to do an audit of any project over 18 meters, and there's certain legal obligations around fire safety, and those are changing all the time, that we can link in there. So a lot of this is about prompting somebody to confirm the building height. In this case, Aidan was supposed to have done this. He's putting in the individual information about that, but we're also supporting Aidan with what good looks like, some helpful guidance. So that's where you have these kind of links back to the right place in the intranet.
Thank you, Matthew. I'll just give a very brief introduction. I'm not going to go through it in the detail we'd normally on a presentation about Scott Brownrigg and who we are. So, we are a global practice. Predominantly the majority of our staff are sort of UK based and our studios within that, but we do have presences across the globe, and our projects like most architectural practices do range right around the globe. Currently at about 210 staff, we do service multiple sectors provide a number of different services. Even some of the newer ones like the digital twin is sort of the digital view of your building and sort of how it interacts with the world. And a lot of the research bits and pieces that stick behind a lot of this stuff and drive it forward. We are employee owned only, so only employees can be shareholders within the business. The majority shareholders are probably our board, but we've got a pretty reasonable split between male and female. Still sort of challenges to reach the right levels around the sort of technical staff. We spend an awful lot of time developing our staff and providing sort of training for them. And from, there's quite a big diversity within that of where they have come from. The challenge, we were facing, we started this journey a little while back now, sort of looking at when we rebuilt our intranet, renamed from SBNet to Compass. We worked with the original developer to pull that together, and we started this journey of trying to pull information from multiple places into one platform. But what we didn't necessarily have was that detailed ability to be able to sort of do two-way integration pieces with a lot of those systems. We could pull information out, but we couldn't necessarily push information back into them. And like a lot of architectural practices, we've got some pretty sort of, I would term as pretty bespoke software out there supporting certain things, and some pretty niche software supporting other areas. Uforma, again, there for our document management. We've got Deltek PIM as our project accounting system. Sage for finance. Pinnacle is the learning platform for training materials, how-tos and things like that. Cascade is our HR system. Spider is another in-house developed system, more for early stage inquiries and sort of gateway checks to see that projects are right for us as a business. Do they meet our ethical requirements? Is it funded legally? Have we got all those? Have we asked the right questions that, around a project, and what's it likely to cost us to sort of get that bid underway, and what's the final project fee likely to be like, so that we can ask those sensible questions and make sure we're only really focusing on the projects that are right for us. EM Perform is our career development piece. Again, this is more down, want to take it away from it being manager-led to being employee-led. And we've looked at a few platforms for this. Again, that is something we are potentially challenging, and have had discussions with Flow 10 about, is this something we could pull into their platform. DocuWare, we've taken PO piece out of PIM just because it wasn't really sort of working for us, and moved it into another bit of software, so that we've got integration that's putting information out of Sage and Deltek and sort of pushing information back to the two of them and allowing for better approvals. And again, we're interfacing that back into Flow 10 for approvals, and then asset for the image library. It's a lot of information out there. We've got a lot of bits and pieces, and then what sits on top of that, as we're doing fee proposals and fee agreements, is people are entering information again into templated documents, whether that's in Microsoft Word or sort of what was in Adobe, or potentially moving that now into Affinity Suite. So there was lots of duplicate entry, lots of people not knowing exactly where to go, lots of different action items. You've got action items in Deltek PIM, you've got action items in Uforma, you've potentially got action items in Teams, action items from Emperform, action items from Cascade, and it's people often not knowing exactly where they've got to go to get things done. So, we looked around, looked at some solutions and spoke with Flow 10. The reasons that we thought this was a great fit for us is one, they were going down that right road already for what they showed us. And, some of the pieces that delved into Deltek PIM really sort of resonated with us. We had an existing relationship with both Matthew and Aidan, because we sort of chatted to them about work we'd done in the past, and particularly with Aidan, we'd sort of been doing some work for us on other sort of side projects we've been doing. They had that existing solution and a vision of where they wanted to take it, and they wanted to engage in a collaborative design process with us. So it wasn't just about the ideas they had. They wanted their clients to sort of be bringing new ideas, new ways of working, and sort of have those discussions and work in a way that is what I would term as a more iterative approach, as sort of, let's try this, get it out, get it live, see how it works, see what we need to tweak and move it forward, which for me is always a better solution around a lot of these things, rather than trying to do that big upfront design first and then build it all. And then by the time it's live, it's probably sort of out of date and not quite where we want to be. So where are we now? So, we've had a sort of very successful and fast-moving project to this point. And, thanks to the whole team there for the work they've done in getting us to this point. We called it My Compass because basically we're hooking it onto the side of Compass. We've done a lot of work with our intranet, and certain things I think we've done quite well there. So, page ownership is something that's pretty good. We've got lots of people contributing to content onto our intranet. We've got lots of sort of feeds coming with useful information in there and sort of around our processes and how they work, and the hooks that then go off to sort of the training platforms. It didn't seem like a good idea to sort of reinvent it all and move everything instantly within a different platform when we had a lot of it working reasonably well. The reason we called it My Compass, because this is much more focused towards the actions that you need to take when you're there, rather than more of a generalistic information about the practice in total and information. So some of it feeds directly from there, and sort of things like the news stories, they're entered by our marketing team and put onto Compass. It feeds both in Compass and on My Compass. But, the key is that side that talks about the My Reminders. And as sort of Matthew showed earlier, it's showing you what tasks you've got outstanding. And if you click on those links, it'll take you through to the system that you need to be actioning that on. It shows you also sort of the projects you're resourced on. One of the biggest challenges we find is you've got projects that you're running as a manager, so you want to be able to see all of those projects. You want to be able to drill into the staff and see who's available to be working on it. You've got the Divine Development bit, Advanced, the HR Hub, which is Cascade, and the Pinnacle bit for the training pieces. If you go on to the next, there's things about the current project statuses. So, we've got a tracker piece that Flowten have built in for us. We've got KPIs we're measuring against the resource allocation and the profit of those projects, other pieces around that. And then sort of you've got bits down the bottom. I've blurred out the names to protect the guilty. As who are the biggest debtors that are related to the projects that person is working on, so that if they're having conversations with those people, they know who to be talking to and when to be talking to them and trying to get the payment in. Other things is looking at, the tasks that are there. With any of these, you can click in, get to the detail page. It'll drive you more details. You can click through to the next systems to see what's more in there. This is the task tracker. So, with each project, we have a number of activities that need to happen. Some potentially won't apply to all projects, depends on the size, complexity of the projects. But we wanted that ability to be able to track this and create the tasks. And, from audit purposes, it means that we've got an easy point when they come in to look at that to show all the activities and actions that have happened, who actioned it, who completed it, and when it happened. The other key one for us was finding those resources who are available to work on tasks and work on projects. So we enhanced, we got Flowten to enhance the search, sort of pull the resource allocations from Deltec, to pull the classifications of people's skills. A lot of this was held currently in Compass, our intranet, or is held in the HR systems or the training systems. So pulling all that information together to get a rating on people. So in this instance, I've clicked on someone with Revit skills and BIM 360 skills, and you can sort of do that search. It will show the people who have been rated highest at the top, and then it will also show their availability or their resource allocation numbers at the moment to allow people to identify someone that they can then talk to or potentially pull onto their project to do the work. And that was something that we would have to before. They'd probably gone through 3 systems to find that information. And next stage is we're sort of looking at going into is, things like the fee proposals and fee agreements, rather than those being Word templates that we have sort of built macros and scripts against to pull a lot of the back-end information from Union Square, to actually sort of drive that in a better process and almost just be a click button to generate the template straight out of there, and give them options to select what are the different features or different sections that they want to include within that proposal. 1, to simplify it, and 2, to sort of just make it a much quicker process for them. A lot of what we're trying to do now is pull the time back for those designers to be doing the design rather than back-end management and controls of the project.
Simon, that's fantastic. Really appreciate it, and thank you again for agreeing to answer a few questions. We do have a number of those. How long has it taken to get to this point, and how has staff feedback been?
I don't know when we had our first conversations, but I mean, actual development work really started sort of end of last year. So, we're probably only talking sort of 4 months, 4 to 5 months to get us to the point we are at the moment. And, the feedback from a lot of the staff has been very positive. It's the fact that they can see in one place what they need to do, what they need to be focusing on, and haven't got to be jumping through multiple systems. So, as much as we've still got this, we're not in an ideal place where you've got My Compass and Compass, but the fact that they've got that dropping page, and we always land on My Compass first, and people just with a bit of training know, if they've got to do a search for something else, they might switch over. But the searches within My Compass search all of the intranet in Compass as well. So, they only need to really sit in one place. It's just more of the catch-all we've left it.
And the final question is, this looks great, but some of my directors think we have enough software already. Any recommendations for how to get them on board?
I mean, the biggest thing is, for me, is around how do you take, if you look at software that's out there, I think you get to the point where you almost want, we're not big businesses. We can't roll out and afford to pay for something, like a Salesforce.com, where you could redevelop and do everything on one platform and make it all work and it'd be fully integrated and everything working. We're always going to have little bits of niche software and niche pieces and processes we need to cover. So for me, this is about pulling all those little bits of software together into one area that allows people to have one window to it all. So if anything, you're simplifying their view of the back end, which, quite often we're better off with some of those little niche bits of software because they do the job better and closer to the way we want to be working.